Hi, everybody. Welcome to our June session with Marylene Henry from Zaz Yoga, all the way from Bali, with us this afternoon or this evening or this morning. It depends on which part of the globe you're in and what time you're watching the session at. She's going to talk to us about alignment, about functional alignment. Marilyn and I have a long-standing relationship with yoga. Of course, we met at a yoga teacher training many years ago in Dubai, and eventually she left the sandpit for the island of the gods, and she started her own teacher training school, and she embarked on pretty much a beautiful mission which embodies the beauty of anatomy and alignment. Um, Hi, Marilyn. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Carla. So nice to see you, and thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure. I'm sure we're going to make the most out of your time here with us. I have a few questions for you with regards to anatomy and identifying perhaps certain poses that are not suitable for everybody. What is your take there? What is your approach? How to do? How? Help us.
How to identify which poses are not suitable for some people? Well, first of all, I think it's important to know about general contraindication for postures and for health condition. As yoga teachers, we should know about them. We should know that anyone of a certain age is at risk of, for example, having osteoporosis. So we're going to avoid putting pressure on the neck because that could be risky. To know that someone with high blood pressure or obesity, we should be careful putting them upside down. So truly, it's about knowing these general contraindication per pose. To me, once we have understood these, it's not really like there's a pose that we shouldn't do, because it's in my firm belief that there is a modification for every possible pose. Whether it is a pigeon pose or a headstand or a warrior, there's always a modification that will make this posture accessible to certain body types or certain health condition. And it's up to us to be creative and to understand not what the pose should look like, but what are we seeking from the pose, and is there another way that we can bring that? For example, someone who has had a knee injury still in recovery, I'll take them through the same sequence, but with chair yoga, right? So they'll get exactly the same benefit, the same grounding, heart openings, calming, whatever I'm seeking in the postures, but with the support of a chair. So this way, they're not put aside because like, oh no, you have that, you cannot do it. More like, how can we make the practice fit you rather than trying to fit you into a practice?
Of
Does
course.
that make sense?
Absolutely. No, it does. It does. Absolutely. I'm just thinking creativity in here plays as big a role as knowledge does.
It does. And creativity, there's creativity like when you create and invent something from nothing, which is the creativity of art. Here we're talking about the ability to think outside of the box, I think. For example, like in a warrior, right? Do you really have to have your arms here? Do we really care about the arms being over the head if someone has a shoulder issue? You can do the same warrior with the hands here or at the waist, and you'll still have the same benefit, right? So it's just about not getting stuck in what we've been fed, unfortunately, for years and years, that a pose has to look like that, and think like, okay, how can the pose work for my students or even within our body, right? I go to yoga classes now and I hear cues like, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to find a way that works with how I feel right here, right now, and still get the benefits of the pose. So out of the box thinking requires to have the knowledge, as you said, but also to have practice, right? To have experience these postures in our own body. And what happens if I place my foot a little bit more like this, or if I engage a little more this muscle, and play with that. And when we understand how it feels in our body, it comes almost natural to like, oh yeah, try that. This might work for you.
Brilliant. I'm loving that. How do you get the person to connect with their body? Because of course you're a trainer yourself, you're a very advanced and experienced yoga practitioner, so you can play around with your body and experience the sensation and see what's actually more beneficial for you, for your body, what makes you more comfortable. Maybe perhaps you're having a little bit of an inflamed shoulder and it's more comfortable for you to stay in Namaste during a warrior sequence, which is actually very beautiful. However, how do you get somebody who's not as experienced and perhaps is coming into a yoga class with certain expectations as much as certain limitations? How do you get them to connect with their body and to actually get to feel like, you understand that your shoulder in here feels a lot more comfortable than having your arms all the way right up, or even having your arms in a cactus position, which is something that I'm exploring a lot more recently because it does help the shoulder a lot more, and the shoulder blade and the neck, especially when you're coming into corporate sessions in which people have been stuck at a desk.
They've been like this, so you put them like that, it's not helpful, right?
You only aggravating. You think you're
Exactly.
helping, and this is warrior all the way. And I love doing it personally. Those are my favorite sequences. I'm known for that in adult classes. Whack those legs, burn them through. However, yes, if your shoulders, your neck, upper spine are very tight, this is not really helping at all. So that
It is, yeah. It
it
will
makes
be
a huge difference.
yeah, it will be aggravating dysfunctional patterns that people may spend their days like this. So
So
for someone used to yoga, they will know to let the shoulder blades sink down. But if people spend their days like this, that's going to be reinforced in the practice. Back to your question, how do you get people to connect with their body? Thank you. I love that question. Many ways. And first of all, I think it's about the environment that we create. And for me, within the first minute of my introduction, something that I always say is that as a teacher, I don't feel what they feel. And I can be the most competent teacher in the world. I can never feel what they feel in their body. So however I will formulate that, I want to make it clear that they are responsible for their practice. I cannot be responsible for anyone else's body. So for me, it's really important to straight away empower people and give them that responsibility for themselves, that I'll be there guiding you. At the end of the day, listen to what your body is telling you. That already puts people into like, yeah, I got this, right? Too often people are suffering in yoga classes because they listen to cue from a teacher because they don't want to disappoint the teacher by not listening. I want the opposite in my class. Do what feels right for you, and I make that very clear. And then within the teachings, I will invite playfulness. I think playfulness is very important into that self-exploration. And I will invite, like, feel how it feels. Maybe today you want to play with that. Maybe you want to explore that without making it sound like, for example, if you have your hands here instead of there, is the loser option, right? For me to bring that as this is an equal option, maybe that's what suits your body today. It doesn't mean that tomorrow you will want to grow, but like see how it feels today, explore, play with it, trust, right? So yeah, rather than like saying, no, you bring your foot like this and your arm like this and your hand here and your gaze there, it's like, okay, let's get into that movement. How does that feel? Here's what we're seeking. Find your own road there for us to get the benefit, right? So I rarely teach from a place of alignment. I teach from a place of function. Why do we do a warrior, right? We want to do a warrior because we want to build that self-confidence from the proud chest, and we want to build the rooting from a neutral pelvis. Yet we'll find most of the warriors are like this. I'm sorry, I have none of this, right? I'm flaring out, yeah, or like this. So if I want to get that footing, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. Not the arms are at shoulder level. I don't care if they're here or if they're here. Like, are you grounded? Are you like solid? If someone saw you, would they be afraid, right? Let's get that energy rather than getting the alignment. And that's where it gets more powerful, I think, to have a practice, because you're not like, oh, that hurts, or am I doing it right? It's more like, I'm feeling it, so I am doing it right.
Excellent. This was just crossing my thoughts. Do you kind of invite people to create their own warrior within the pose, be their own self?
Um, I do invite them to explore different sensations, right, and find their own ways, without certain limits, right? I could have more creative class, but I don't know if you've covered the doshas with your thing, but then you'll have the vata starting to dance in their warriors. You don't want to keep a certain structure. So I think in general, I'm more like, okay, we are seeking this in this posture. Here are different options. Find the one that works best for me. That's a lot trickier to teach. It's much easier to tell people how to do, like, point one, do this, point two, do that.
Mm.
Um, but then I think people force their bodies into things that are not uncomfortable.
Yeah,
If you do that, the mind gets into that, oh, I'm in pain, oh, I'm not good enough. And we're doing then the opposite of yoga.
absolutely.
When you're doing the opposite, where you say, like, this is what we're seeking, these are how you could find it, explore, then we really empower people. Like, we give them the choice, like, to decide what is right for themselves, and to be curious about how they feel. And how often do we do that in our life, to like tune in? It's like, how am I feeling? Is that right for me? And if that's not right for me, I'm going to say no and do it my own way. Gosh, if everyone did that in their life outside of the mat, to say, like, no, this way is not doing it for me, it's hurting, let me get the same result but my way, we would be in so much more harmony, having our own boundaries, having our empowerment, being able to say, no, that doesn't work for me. So so that's where yoga beyond the mat, to me, is about, yeah, using these tools of the practice to really impact how people can build their self-confidence, can build their awareness, mindfulness, to tune in and, yeah, find their
Yeah,
own power.
connection within themselves. You were just reminding me, I worked in education for many years, both in the UK and in the UAE, and there was a standardized testing that puts everybody through the exact same paper and puts everybody against the exact same score. So again, if you take it to a yoga philosophy level, it really doesn't work. Because then, if you're looking at a standardized pose being a standardized warrior pose or a standardized tree pose, any of them, it's not for everybody. It's just it's just not possible. However, you can have a modification that suits each and every individual. And because everybody is so different, even our brain structure is completely different. It's not just the body, which is the physicality that we get to see and that we get to work with as specialists in our field, of course. But it comes from, you know, a deeper end, which is the actual fact that the brain is structured in a complete different way. So again, if someone is expected to have a modification, they just automatically feel like they're carrying a label, and they feel completely like a failure, like, oh, I required
Outcasted, or yeah.
they had to change this for me, the teacher had to give me an option, I'm a complete failure. But it just comes from the way we were schooled. It comes from the way we were educated. Because if someone required some additional help, or if someone required a differentiation, it's actually called differentiation in academics, for a specific paper or subject, that actually meant the person was failing, which is not the case. It just meant they were different, so they required a difference. It's called
Exactly.
differentiation, not failure.
They will just take another road to reach the same outcome, right? And you're right, this is how we were trained. We're trained like on, like, learning by heart and
Yeah,
regurgitating
standardized.
all of that, rather than being trained on on outcome, right?
On
What if
outcome and
my
on
method and your
suitability.
method?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I call it
we can have
suitability.
completely different methods and have excellent results in different ways. And that's what yoga philosophy brings us as well, right? Just going back to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, to me, that was so beautiful to have that acknowledgement that the outcome is liberation. Your path to your liberation, whatever suits you, right?
Yes, oh,
How powerful is that?
yeah.
Acknowledging that, yeah, for me, like I perceive the world through my mind. So my path to enlightenment is through cognition, right? For other people, that will be through meditation. For other people, that would be through devotion and chanting. That's perfectly okay. We're all reaching the same destination based on our individual differences. And you mentioned how, yeah, our nervous system is so different. Also, our anatomy, right? We tend to think that we all have the same skeleton. We actually don't have the same skeleton. There's so much variety in the shape of our bones, in the number of our bones as well. You know, people will have sometimes a 13th pair of rib. We don't talk about it, right? But our 13th pair of rib will impact how your shoulder can move. The just looking at our wrist, right? If we place, let's do that, you and I, right? If we place our fist like this and turn down, right? You see that my left fist doesn't turn as much. And for you, yeah, same. So if I do that, when I place my hands flat on the floor, if I don't have the same rotation in my wrist, I cannot place my hands the same way. That's just in my own body that I'm asymmetrical. My hips are asymmetrical. My warrior two doesn't look the same on the left and on the right. So if a teacher tells me open your hips to the long side of the mat and pushes me to be parallel to the long side of the mat, I'm going to mess up my left knee because my hips are not shaped this way, right? And it's amazing that finally yoga is acknowledging that, and that functional alignment is becoming more and more recognized, that it's not about the shape, it's really about what we're seeking and adapting. But unfortunately, there's still these cues that are just repeated from teacher to teacher. You know, you're trained with certain cues, you repeat them without actually asking, does that make sense?
That's
Like
right.
that 45-degree angle foot, right? That drives me crazy. If I go to the end, right, that's 45-degree or 90-degree angle in the feet, right? First of all, most people don't know their angles. So saying that as a guidance is dangerous because it could be completely misunderstood because no one remembers their geometry from school, right? And then second, that angle doesn't work for most people, or that heel to heel alignment doesn't work for most people. For example, in our Warrior One, do you want me to demonstrate it?
Yes, please. But
Let
you're
me
making
see if
me
I
laugh.
can.
Set it up and I'll tell the story because I often do, of course, a lot of kids' classes. And when I have the older kids, I take advantage of the fact that we're going into geometrical figures. And so
Uh-huh.
I test them at math geometry, and I say, okay, foot at 45, and they might know their math, but then they actually don't know how to do it with their bodies. So I do a physical geometrical class.
That is fun.
Yeah,
That's super fun.
it's quite
And
fun, exactly. But then we do look at the angle. We do look at the 90, and then we figure out that the 45 is the half of that 90. So we play a lot with the positioning of our foot or feet, depending on the pose. Sometimes it's one isolated foot, sometimes it's a pair. And then we also work on the arches. And that's how we strengthen the foot.
so
Because
useful.
collapsed arches, of course, are going to give us a lot of problems. And it's extremely common that people have no strength in the feet whatsoever.
Correct. Because
Yeah.
we actually, from early development, we were put in these bouncy thing, and we didn't have our natural development of movement with all the modern life. So can you see me? You
Yes,
can
very
see my
good.
lower back. So I'm
Yeah.
going to take this way because all my hips matter here. So let's talk about that 45-degree foot here. And I want my hips to face forward. Maybe I should move that a little further. Sorry.
Further, further. Yeah, for
Oh,
warrior
this
two,
is
we're
knows
fine.
that too. So if my heel to heel, put at 45 degrees, you see that my knee is facing outward. So if I try to bring my hips forward, now I have a rotation in my knee, and that's actually quite painful, right? For me, the right angle to do that is actually to have my foot at more or less 30 degrees so that my hips can face forward. Even more comfortable to bring my foot out a little bit, right? So this way my hips are facing forward, my hips, knee, and ankle are in the same direction. And if you see it from the side, I can have my pelvis stable. So there's no side bend or torsion in my back. I'm solid in my root, I'm respecting my knee joint. And now you come and you push me, you won't move me because I'm really anchored into my base. If I'm like this, I'm in pain. I cannot bring my hip forward without really creating that torsion in the knee. And God knows that an injury in the knee is not something fun to have, right? So that's
No,
just
no,
an example.
I don't recommend the knee injury. I had mine dislocated a long time ago, and it took years to heal. So, and I
It
healed
makes
it.
forever.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's really, really bad. Thank you very much for that beautiful, optional, and alternative alignment for the warrior pose, the warrior one, which is quite hard. It's a tough one to master. I have another question for you. Maybe it's a little bit controversial, but what happens if you're giving people options? Like you just demonstrated in your warrior one, and somebody challenges you and says, well, it doesn't look like this post here, and they come up with an Instagram post, most probably, or in a younger book.
Yes, yes. Um, I love these actually because that's an opportunity for me to bring more awareness into the fact that everyone has a different anatomy. Very often, what we see on Instagram are people who are naturally very flexible, very young, very fit, and they get into these poses for 2 seconds and they get out of it screaming in pain, right? But we get in there for the shoot. And you and I know we get into photo shoot and we're pushing a little deeper than usual, even if we know better, because it's for a photo shoot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great opportunity to say like, well, yeah, that looks very pretty, but what is that person body shape compared to my body shape or your body shape? And what is that person coming? Like going back to this warrior one, I can do a really beautiful warrior one where I'm all like this, right? It's pretty. I'm gonna have a lot of likes on Instagram, but I'm collapsing into my lower back and have no completeness. So what benefits am I going to getting from that posture? And opening that conversation, I think it is brilliant for the opportunity for people to start reflecting like, yeah, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe like what I see on Instagram actually doesn't have much benefit. And I spend like my Instagram message box. It's full of my past students sending me these pictures like, oh my God, look at this back. She must be in so much pain, right? Because now they know better. And now they're empowered to actually tune in. And you want to put a pretty posture on Instagram, go for it. But in the daily practice, if we do those over and over, the body's going to take a toll eventually. You dislocated your knee. My business partner, she had her knee dislocated by her teacher from a wrong alignment, and I have her permission to share a story. So yeah, yoga can be truly rough on the body if we don't pay attention. You know, we have as many injuries now in yoga as we have in other sports like tennis and football.
Yeah,
This is shocking.
it is very, very much shocking. Yeah,
But it's not surprising when we try to push everyone to fit into the same shape
it's sad
when we
as
don't
well.
have the same shape. It's like everyone has different shape, but let's all fit into a square. You're gonna have to squeeze and push, and it's not gonna be healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that standardization again, but that is the expectation to fit into that standard because that is what the pose should look like. And people come in with that level of expectation. It's also the rush. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. Of course, yoga is trending now, let's say, almost more than ever. it really exploded on a global level. And I think Instagram is a very good platform to help promote the work that we do. Of course, we all use social media. If we don't these days, it's like we don't even exist. However, I feel like sometimes people are in a hurry to achieve a pose, and they forget about the fact that it just takes a whole lifetime career to train the body into a level of flexibility and a level of strength that actually allows for you to do a flying crow or
not, you know, some people, because of their anatomy, might not ever be able to do a certain full pose, right? And I don't like that word, hence the quotes. But if, for example, I'll never be able to do a full warrior two on the left side, this is not how my body is shaped.
Yes.
I can force it unless I go under the operation table and have my hip bone shaved. This is not going to happen. And it's good to accept that, right? Say like, this is not working for me. I can do a lot of other stuff. But what's the goal of doing these advanced poses anyway? Aside from our ego and our Instagram followers, this is not, like there's physical growth, there's strength, that's beautiful. But in terms of inner growth, this is not where you have the most results either.
No, absolutely. I agree. But I think you said a key word in there, acceptance. And we live very rushed lifestyles, especially those of us in cities. And I really do feel the general goal is to do things as fast as possible and to achieve things as fast as possible, so then it becomes competitive. And you said a key word in there, in my opinion, which is acceptance. It's like, well, you have to accept your reality, which is sometimes, first of all, not easy to understand, and second of all, not easy to do, to accept one's own reality. But again, that really is where you encounter growth. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And acceptance requires to be present and to see what's happening, right? The opposite of acceptance to me is not rejection, but avoidance. Very often when we're not ready to accept something, we turn away from it. And we numb it. And social media is a way to numb it, but substance abuse, relationships that are dysfunctional, like all of these can be ways to avoid actually facing some of what we may call shortcomings, which I prefer to say is like, it's just your own flavor.
Absolutely. It is indeed interesting. Denial as well, avoidance, denial.
Very, all of these, when you find yourself on the mat and rather than being told, look this way, you're being told, feel how you're feeling right now, be fully present. There's no place to hide. There's no more denial. There's no more numbing. Like, you're there in the present moment. And that can be a very safe space to explore these, to then bring them into your life for the bigger things, for the bigger patterns of behavior. So I think, once we turn away from looking like yoga poses and actually being yoga, even in the fitness yoga classes, we can see such beautiful transformation and seeing people like really taking responsibility for themselves and growing just by showing up on their.
That's right, just by showing up, which is already a lot.
It takes courage.
Yeah. Have you got any specific cues? Any specific cues for modifications, for options?
It will depend on the posture, but as I mentioned earlier, to me, I try to focus on what we're seeking. So we're going to do a forward fold, and I'll say, okay, we're seeking a nice stretch or a nice lengthening sensation at the back of the leg. We're doing a tree pose. I want to feel the opposition of force between grounding and lengthening. So I'll speak more in terms of sensation. Typically, my cues will be safety of the body, right? Making sure that the basic alignment of the sacroiliac joint, the spine and the knees are covered. And after that, it's really about what we're seeking. So it might even sound a little woo-woo as cues the way I teach my yoga classes, because I'm about feeling, right? Not about feeling emotion, but feeling sensations in the body. And that will vary from pose to pose. And even within one pose, again, I was showing you a warrior one, which typically I'll teach for grounding and self-confidence, but I can also bring that heart open version into a heart opening class if that's something that I want, right? Just, the way we raise our arms in Surya Namaskar. If I have a class again where I want to boost people's self-confidence or open their heart, I'll raise them from the sides. If I want a class that is more focused and mindful and present, I'll have a very different sensation, raising them from the front, right? Same posture, tiny difference that will bring, where's that light changing? That will bring a difference to the practice. And again, that's learned by exploring your own practice, exploring your own body, the sensation, like, how does that feel if I engage more my little finger? How does that feel if I engage more my thumb? How does that feel if, so that curiosity in the practice is so key, I believe, to being a good and inspirational yoga teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the research starts from thyself, right? I guess it's me search before research, because you have
Correct.
to find what suits, and then you adjust for you, and then that helps you, of course. It opens up the scope to help other people adjust, like this way, like you said, the little finger, the way you raise your arms up front or sideways already makes a huge difference in the upper body. It's like I'm not even doing the full extension, and I already feel like there's a huge difference. Shoulder blades, shoulder heads, chest, all the muscles, shoulder girdle, and collarbone is,
And energetically as well, right?
yeah,
Here
yeah,
it's all
as you
about
open,
expansion,
yeah,
reaching out, opening. Here's about focus, right? So
yeah,
you'll have a different energy
yeah,
in the practice.
yeah,
Again, I hope energy is not taken, like here in Bali, I talk about energy, everyone's like, oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But it's the energetic, the sensation that we get, the emotions that we can trigger, because our emotions are expressed physically in the body chemically, which will have reactions on our muscle, and based on the emotion, we'll have a different breath pattern, which will impact our posture, right? We can just, if we need to feel a boost of confidence, just standing like this, within a few seconds, adrenaline starts to kick in. Having the arms like that actually for a few seconds activates our adrenal glands, right? So which gives us energy and more courage and power. So playing with the energetics of the position of the body can allow us to create classes that go so much more deeper than, okay, let's do a triangle, now let's do a half moon, let's do a low lunge. Like, okay, let's get into what do you want to get out from the body and then carry for the rest of the day. And that's where, like, it's so much fun to teach yoga, because you can create people's mood, you can create people's attributes, you can create people's emotion, because you understand how to make them move and what to make them seek in their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. As a cultural anecdote, being a Latina, when you show up and your hands are firmly on your hips, you mean business. And there is no messing. So if you're reporting or accounting, I had to show up here and there and blah, blah, blah. And long story short, I had my hands on my hips and there was no messing around. That is the end of the negotiation.
And strength, you feel it in your body, you project
Yeah,
it as well
yeah,
into the world. It's all
that's it.
connected. Our bodies, our emotion, our thoughts, it's all one. And we need to stop seeing them as separate, especially in yoga, which is, or in any movement practice, which is really the opportunity to go and play with that.
Yeah,
And
that's
once you know that,
fantastic.
you wake up moody, you know what to do. You wake up over energized, you know what to do. It's
Yeah,
super
yeah,
important.
yeah. If you're too tired, if you're too stressed out, so you learn how to manage that and how to self-regulate which
Exactly.
is fascinating. Yeah, yeah.
Which
And how
is,
to overcome triggers and work around. And in the end of the day, I guess it's self-regulation, self-management.
and in kids yoga, it's so important because we develop this self-regulation from the age of 3 to 7, I believe.
Yeah.
So exploring these movements and emotion and different like body position, like really allow you to then not rely on a parental figure to manage your own emotion. So that's something beautiful to bring for kids as well. And in
Yeah.
kids, you don't care so much about alignment. You care about that playfulness and exploring and embodying shapes and trees and animals. Why don't we do that with adults? Because that's what yoga should be.
I know. You said the golden years from the age of 3 to 7. The kids come in, it's a blank page. They have no judgment. You do the poses, they mimic you, but they're already doing what suits their bodies. Because again, somebody's doing this, and somebody is doing this, and somebody is doing this. Because they
And
naturally
that's all
do
okay.
what works for them. And somebody is running around the room because they have space and they feel like running. And they have all this energy built up that they feel like running, and they're just buzzing around and they're busy, and then they wear off that energy, steam is off, and then they come on the mat and then they're ready. So it allows for so much more self-regulation than any other activity I've ever come across in my career. But then again, we forget. In adulthood, we forget. You tell somebody to wiggle, and that's a very cool thing to do, to wiggle, and people look at you like she go mad. Come on, shake your body off, shake it off, just wiggle, just gently, your arms, whatever. Wiggle in any way that you want, and they just want to. Okay, we don't.
Many adults live their life in the sagittal plane, right? They're only used to movement in the sagittal plane. You ask them to bring transverse and
Yeah,
frontal movement, and it's like, whoa, what is that, right? It's uncomfortable.
just doesn't exist. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Thank you ever so much for your time, Marilyn, tonight. How can we find you? Where are you? Can we come and see you?
I'm on this Instagram because I exist. So we are on Instagram, Zaz Yoga, where I do share a few rants about how yoga can injure and the responsibility of yoga teachers and mindfulness in movement. Because I think mindfulness is a key to happiness in our life and again self-empowerment. So on Instagram, Zaz Yoga, Zazyoga. On the web, zazyoga.com, on Facebook, Zaz Yoga. So everything is Zaz Yoga. It's easy to reach me. We have a wonderful mindful movement yoga teacher training. All of our graduates are super confident into teaching in medical spaces, physiotherapy clinics. They work with chronic conditions, with disabilities, because we teach them how the body function and how to adapt the practice, and how to structure classes that are impactful, inclusive, and mindful. So that teacher training right now is online, which I'm so excited about because it allows us to reach a lot more people without the need to travel and spend so much more money. And they have the most incredible one-on-one support every day with my partner Ella and myself, where they get like one-on-one feedback throughout their training. So this is honestly like the experience of a lifetime if you want to be a competent teacher. And for people who already have done a yoga teacher training, we offer the same content for yoga teachers called our Bridge program. For people who are not yet confident or they want to dive more into skills of teaching and functional alignment and functional anatomy. That program is available at a fraction of the cost for yoga teachers as well. So all of that is on zazyoga.com or on Instagram.
Fantastic. Do you have any other programs coming up? Any retreats for the summer? Now Indonesia is open, I hear.
Indonesia is partially open. There is still quite an expensive quarantine on the way here. It's still possible to come, but given the additional cost, we decided to pause our face-to-face activity, also for respect that we are still during a pandemic. So at the moment, we're not doing in-person training. We have a few mini courses that are on the way. We already have our chakra course, which is a 9 module deep dive into the chakra with the theory and the practice of the chakras. And right now I'm working on reformatting and launching specific functional anatomy courses and yoga philosophy courses. Yoga teachers who just want to get these extra modules and this extra knowledge. Everything we do is done with the intent that knowledge should be applicable. Knowing something that you cannot apply to your life is like knowing nothing, right? So everything from anatomy to philosophy is very functional and applicable so that you can have concrete changes straight away as soon as you learn.
Of course. Amazing. Amazing. That sounds fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm sure lots of people will be reaching through your social media channels and checking out your website. I will love you and leave you now. Thank you very much for connecting all the
Thank
way.
you so much. I hope to visit soon.
See you very soon.
Thanks for
Namaste.
having me. Thanks,
You're
everyone.
welcome. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.